Great. So we are officially started. Again, welcome. My name is Michelle Mapp, and I serve as the CEO at Resources for Infant Educators. And I'm really happy to be here today with everybody and to see so many people joining us for this important topic about peace and peacefulness in what sometimes can be very stressful times, how to interact with family members, seeing the holidays through the eyes of a child, thinking about your own self-care, and then also thinking about gifts and toys. So these are kind of really important topics, and I'm so glad to be here with these very accomplished individuals. So with that, I'd like to introduce each one of our guests today. So Wendy, I'm going to start with you. If you can just raise your hand. So this is Wendy Cronic. She served on the RIE Board of Directors from 1999 to 2004. She is an author. She became passionate about RIE in 1992 as a result of attending Liz Memmel's parent-infant guidance classes with her then 4-month-old son. So she became certified as a RIE parent-infant guidance facilitator in 1997, and she's taught in Santa Monica and the west side of LA. Wendy facilitates both online and in-person classes through the Los Angeles RIE Center. Melanie, I'll go to you next. Hi. So Melanie is a mother of 4 children. She found RIE when her oldest was 4 months old. And so her and her husband have been practicing the RIE philosophy ever since. And her oldest is a teenager, so it's been a little bit. Melanie became a RIE associate in 2014, having to take a slower path as she was pausing her studies along the way to have her children. Melanie teaches the RIE parent-infant guidance classes online. She's also taught at our Hollywood Center. And then she also teaches Nurturing Nanny and Before Baby, as well as private consulting. During the week, she's the tot center coordinator of Kirk of the Valley School. And she works with children's 18 months to 3 years. And Shannon Carr, who's coming to us from St. Louis, Missouri. And she became a RIE associate in 2020, but has been in awe of the approach since 2002 after reading Your Self-Confident Baby and seeing such positive outcomes in infant classrooms and with her own children. She's worked with families and early childhood professionals in some capacity since 1994 as a teacher, director, parent educator, and advocate for children in foster care. She has a Master of Arts in Teaching and a Bachelor's in Child and Family Development. And she also created Friends of RIE Midwest and helps coordinate the development of RIE in the St. Louis area. So with that, those are our wonderful, wonderful panel. And I'm just going to open it up to our first topic, which is addressing or sort of managing family and differing parenting styles during the holidays. And that involves family, friends, grandparents, and others. So I'm going to just, I don't know, Wendy, if you want to start us off.
Sure. I'm thinking of Magda, and when she would tell me, I remember discussing my fear of getting together with family over a holiday with my 1-year-old son, and the fact that they were going to do things a lot differently than what I had learned, what I was learning. And she said, well, whose opinion is more important? The baby's or your aunt and uncles? For some people that could be a toss-up, but I got it. And, we want to have age appropriate and situation appropriate expectations for our babies, but also for our families. We want to have situation appropriate expectations. And when she told me, above all, be kind, and she would say, reflect, respect, respond. So I found a way to diplomatically convey that message to family, but I couldn't give them a crash course in RIE. So I know it sounds ridiculous for a 12-month-old, I prepared him for what was going to happen. People would be picking him up, and if I could get to him in time, if he didn't want them to, I would help him. And it seemed to work, but still people kind of looked at me like that crazy mom. But there were no family fights over it. So Magda would say, above all, be kind. So I was very, very kind to family and more giving than I would be if I saw them every day.
I think something important that you brought up, Wendy, was expectations. You know, you set the expectations for your son in advance. And we can also set expectations for our family members too, you know, on the principles or the things that are really important to us. Some things we're just going to have to recognize are going to be different because we're possibly in a different place, but with different people, all that kind of stuff. But you can set expectations are, say you really want to try to still keep them on their, you know, pay attention to their cues and nap them when they need to. You don't want to push off naps. So set the expectation in advance with the family. Hey, listen, we're really gonna try to keep his naps on target. I might have to duck out sometimes for that. You know, so set their expectations, set the expectations of your child, and manage your own expectations that everything's not gonna be perfect, you know, and doesn't have to be either, right? I think if everybody has moderated expectations, it can go a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, expectations is actually what comes up for me as well as, and that reflect, respect, respond that Wendy was talking about. Thinking about what are the expectations that if it's grandparents, right, or an aunt or an uncle, what are their expectations for the holidays, you know, having that conversation ahead of time. So then you can kind of reflect on that. And then what Melanie said, set kind of some of those expectations that you have as well.
And they see this time differently too. You know, you with your child, you're thinking long term, I'm trying to help them, you know, become an emotionally balanced person. So I'm not going to tell them to stop crying or whatever. And your people who are there for 1 day, 2 days, they just want us to be happy right now. I want to make a bond right now with this baby I only get to see for 2 days, you know? So they have a totally different agenda than maybe you do for this time with the child, you know?
You know, I love what you just said. It's such a good reminder for parents. You know, when we say above all, be kind to yourselves too, and be forgiving, because remember, the parents are still the main influence. If everything doesn't go perfectly right, even if, you know, and I was not able to tell, my aunt gave me a big reunion and I could not call 45 people, you know, although, you know, if it's small and intimate, you can. Yeah. But just remembering that I'm the main influence, that 1 day or 2 days is not going to make or break your child's life or yours. You can still help him make or her make sense of the world and make sense of what's happening. What you said is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes afterwards you just go out and you're like, to your infant, your child, you're like, that was crazy, right? You know? Whew, that was crazy, right? There was a lot going on.
Well, you just brought up something so important, is authenticity and not pretending that you don't feel what you're feeling because they can see it. I always say, don't try to pretend that you're okay. You know, when we're tense, we smile. And babies know, I mean, we know it, you kind of look like a car grill because you're clenching your teeth.
Right, so, what's the message?
Yeah,
absolutely. And if you prepare, if you know in advance that it's going to be okay, this is going to be a challenge, prepare some outs for yourself, you know, logistical outs like, boy, I think he needs a new diaper. I'm going to go to the other room. Like, what person is not going to hand you the baby, right? You know, I need to go to the other room and change the diaper, like just logistical outs or like emotional outs. Like if you know somebody, like, I'm just going to change the conversation with Uncle Jim because I know he loves football. So let's just, when he starts giving me parenting advice, I'm going to say, hey, how's your team doing this year? You know, give yourself an out so that you can take a break.
Very good advice.
I just wanted to loop back on something Wendy said, and because I've heard you guys talk before also about this importance of making sense of everything for the child. And if you could just elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, well, I think that our baby's taken everything. And that's why I tell parents, I'll back up a bit. If your child is crying in the middle of the night and you go into the bedroom and you smile, your smile is not going to be in sync with your body language or the tension you feel. And parents are afraid of not smiling because they're going to hurt their child's feelings. But I think that's a little bit of crazy making. I think all babies naturally assume that our every reaction is because of them. So if we're unhappy or if we're tired, it behooves us to say, to help them make sense of it. You see that my face is kind of a little grumpy. I'm just very tired. I'm a little nervous. Has nothing to do with you. It's a grown-up problem. I use that a lot for my child. If I got upset with his father, I wouldn't say, "Oh, what a jerk your dad is." But he would see that I'm upset, and I'd say, "Yeah, it's a grown-up problem. Has nothing to do with you." But validate that they see what's going on instead of ignoring it and putting it off. So for me, it was a way of life to help make sense of the world correctly instead of, "Oh, you're okay," or "Nothing happened," or if you forget to tell them what's going on, remember, they will remember. It's okay. It's not too late to tell them a day later.
Yeah.
You saw me upset yesterday, and this is why. It had nothing to do with you. It was a kind of noisy, and obviously protect their childhood, so don't get into politics and dad, and just in an age appropriate way. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking of that, even talking about it afterwards or the next day, like, what did that feel like for you? Or, I noticed this and that happened. What was that like? So being able to have those conversations, again, depending on the age and the stage of development, will depend on what you're talking about. But being able to kind of follow up and allow space for those feelings and emotions that maybe happened the day before or earlier that day.
And sometimes in the moment with the child, if let's say, somebody does something in the moment and you see the reaction on the baby's face, that's great to reply to the baby. And it also gives the people who are doing it a cue. When you see
Yeah.
the baby, somebody picks the baby up and the baby goes, and you say, "Oh, I see by your face, you're so surprised when, Uncle Jim picked you up. That was a surprise." That acknowledges what the baby felt, and it's a cue to Uncle Jim. Hey, that was a lot for her. So you can acknowledge that in the moment.
Yeah, that's saying what you see, on their faces.
I think sometimes we give mixed messages to our children depending on their age, because we all want them to have not a fear of strangers, but a skepticism. But here's mommy and daddy, you're saying, "Here, go to Uncle Jim. Jeremy really wants to hug you." And they're going like this. Now, we wouldn't say that as Rye parents, but when Uncle Jeremy goes like this and your child doesn't want to, then of course, I hear Magda's voice saying, "Whose opinion is more important?" Then I would just tell Uncle Jim, "Oh, I know you really want to hug him." But the same thing you tell your child. You really
Right,
want to hug him.
it looks like he doesn't want to hug right now.
Yeah. Or I might say, "You know what? I'm going to give Uncle Jim a hug on this side." Uncle
Yeah.
Jim, baby's over here. It's good to see you, Uncle Jim. I'll give you a hug. You're not ready for a hug yet. And that not only just gets the baby, space, the baby doesn't have to give a hug, but it shows the baby that I feel Uncle Jim is a pretty safe guy. So maybe in a day or two, you'll be okay with Uncle Jim around, even though he smells different than, you're used to, or whatever it is. We forget perspective. I don't know what it is you don't like about Uncle Jim. He has facial hair. None of the guys have facial hair. He smells different. It's their perspective, that they have their reasons, and we just have to trust that.
Well, also, they're not used to the big reactions, in your face reactions that they're going to get from people who, with all good intentions, just want to be close to them.
Right.
But they're really big. And, your child looks unhappy, and then Aunt Sylvia comes over and tries to shake them and rattles and tries to make them, objectifies them. But out of love, there's no bad intention there. And you're modeling. That's beautiful what you just said. You would give Uncle Jim the hug, and it's the modeling, seeing mom, that is what makes them feel safe, and also letting them know when they're ready. But you
Yeah.
are their advocate. You're the child's advocate. That's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we go ahead? If anybody has a question or would like to come off mute, you can raise your hand. And it might be a good time for us to take a question, particularly around this idea of, different parenting styles, family, the challenges of the holidays, and being able to kind of set your own boundaries while respecting the other people as well, right? Do we have any raised hands? I'm happy to take somebody off mute. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so.
Michelle, there's another topic that in this whole relationship family dynamic thing that I think is important is not just we're talking about, uncles and aunts and grandmas and grandpas taking hold of your child, but also what about when you get together with your sister's kids and you're like literally parenting styles are coming into conflict. She has 2 kids, you have 3 kids, and everybody's playing, and you guys just Rye is not, unfortunately, the mainstream parenting, out there. And so you and your sister have a very different idea about how to do this. How do we manage that? How do we,
Well, how do we? Tell me.
I was waiting for the answer, Melanie.
I've never had, even my sisters or my brother or my sister-in-law, I've never had anybody get mad at me for treating their children respectfully. So a lot of times, as long as I just jump, I'll jump in with respect, not jump in, but if there's a situation between the children, when I come in and say, oh, you want the truck and you also want the truck. You guys both want the truck. Wow. How are we going to solve this problem? This is a problem. Right. And my sister's standing back there going, what is going on? Why are you
Did anyone ever say, you're talking to them as if they're real people?
Yes.
So what do you do? Yeah.
So usually if I go in with respect, I get weird looks. I get, people think I'm crazy, but they're not mad at me for how I treated their children because I'm treating the children with respect. They think it's nuts. They don't think it's going to work, but they don't get angry with me for treating their children respectfully in general.
So then the following year, when they watch you with your children, they go, oh, you're just lucky. You're so wonderful.
You're so lucky with your kids. Yeah, I am. I really am. I'm lucky I found this philosophy when they were 4 months old and have practiced ever since,
We're getting some really great questions in the chat. So if I can throw a couple of those out to you guys. There is one. Oh, this one I thought was really important. How do you handle it when a family member tries to discipline your child in a way you do not agree with?
Yeah. Violence. No violence.
No. Yeah, I think what comes up for me is sometimes, just saying what I see, right? So I may be saying, it looks like you were trying to do XYZ and so is angry about that. Let's go figure out something together, or, depending on the situation, but coming in there, not disrespecting the adult or the child, right? Just kind of saying what I see and moving on to something else.
Absolutely.
And then maybe talking to the child quietly about that situation again on their level.
I remember when my son was 2.5, I stayed at a cousin's in Cleveland, and he wasn't doing anything that was horrible. She got mad at him. She was a real yeller. Now she's a grandparent. She can't understand why she doesn't have a good relationship with her kids. But she looked over at my son and told him, you stop it, and you stop jumping off that staircase now. And I was like a deer caught in the headlights. And his face, he was crushed, absolutely crushed. And he started to cry. And, for a second, I really didn't know what to do. I'm staying at her house. And I wanted to, I was really upset with her, but I immediately went to him and said, excuse me. And he says, I hate her. I hate her. I hate her.
Yes.
I understand that was not okay what she did. That was terrible. But anyway, these situations come up. That is part of life, isn't it? But if we're there as the understanding advocate, and then I did go back to her and I said, he's not used to being ever spoken to that way. So it'd be really nice, if you could. She said, oh, well, he's not an adult. You don't talk to him like he's an adult. Like, I won't do that like you do. And then now she says, I'm just lucky.
Yeah, you were so lucky.
Yeah. So has that happened to any of you? And what do you do?
The first thing I would do if I'm there. Now, sometimes you're not there, right? Like you find out they come running to you and you find out that, I'm just hammering Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim was yelling at them to not jump off the stairs, But if I'm there, if I see it, the first thing I do is walk my body in between, or place my body, if I can, in between the grown-up and my child. And then I just say to the grown-up, so now I'm going to take the attention from the grown-up to my child. I'm going to take it to me and say, hey, catch me up. What's going on? Right? So now you talk to me, grown-up person. You talk to me, hey, catch me up. What's going on? He was jumping off the stairs. Oh, great. All right. Hey, bud, let me talk to you for a second about the stairs. And then I'll take him away from Uncle Jim and say, Uncle Jim is crazy. He's got a weird thing about stairs. I don't know, and then I'll take over from there. But first, I'm going to get in between them if I physically can. And then I'm going to take the attention so that it's not on you anymore. Then we can repair what happened. You and I can discuss, the child and I can discuss what happened after that. And maybe I need to set some limits, or maybe I just need to help you, process what just happened, whatever the situation is. It's harder when I wasn't there and you come running crying to me, or all of a sudden I come over and he's crying. I mean, you can't be everywhere all the time, especially if you have multiple children and they go, in 12 different directions. And then you find out there was a scuffle over here and, somebody talked about it, intervened in a way that you wouldn't have. Now you're trying to play catch up. That's hard too,
but you remind me of something. In this case, I was sitting in the living room and I saw it. I was on the steps. I didn't think it was any big deal to jump from the second step to the landing. And I was a deer caught in the headlights. So what I want to tell parents is that when you find yourself in that position, because I've had through the years people saying, this happened, I didn't know what to say, and I said nothing. So I said, well, did you tell your child later? So it's not too late. So
Right.
Please be forgiving of yourself if you don't know what to do. And it's okay to tell your child, I don't know what to do. But it's never too late. And even 2 days later, when that happened, I didn't know what to say. And you help them make sense of it, because they will not have forgotten. But really be forgiving of yourselves because it's going to happen. These things happen. You don't know what to do at that moment because you're unprepared. I was thoroughly unprepared for that.
I love that you added that, Wendy. I think that's a way of self-care, right? Like forgiving yourself, knowing that we're human, and then knowing we can follow up later. And that's an important piece, right? And if it didn't mean anything to your child, then that conversation is probably going to be pretty short. If it did, then you'll go, somewhere with it. And I was thinking about, Melanie, your, example of the jumping off the stairs, and maybe, setting that boundary that now we've heard from Uncle Jim. And so at Uncle Jim's house, we don't jump off the stairs like we do at home. It's just different. So sometimes those rules have to be different. And something that's coming up for me is sometimes even the language my children were hearing were different than maybe what we were doing at home. Like, grandma says all girls wear dresses and all boys have short hair, for example, right? And my son had really long hair. And so she would always ask him, like, when are you going to cut that hair? And so, we would have to talk about afterwards that, grandma, where she, when she grew up, it was thought that boys wear short hair. And so it's different for us in our family. We know that boys can have whatever length hair they want. And that's what we do in our family. And every family has some different thoughts or feelings around those pieces.
Shannon, will that also apply when they're watching their cousins who are treated entirely differently and disrespectfully? And they will notice. They
They
notice
will.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah, so
we,
maybe,
go ahead. Just.
I was
just a
gonna
lot
say,
of
so I may be
people.
even sharing, we may be even talking about what we are seeing, right? Or, yeah, it looked like he was upset and we do that differently, right? I'm wondering what he was feeling there. Maybe there's something we can do, or, I don't know, right? It just depends on where we are in the moment in that conversation. Michelle.
Yeah, no, we have a couple more questions and I'm gonna go ahead and it's coming, I'm sorry, it comes up as JNE infants.
Yeah, it's a work account.
So it's like JNE, come on.
Yeah, my name is Landon. I'm a infant lead teacher, and one of the things that I was thinking about was what you're all talking about, and like some of these examples you have is that these are all really good ideas on preparation as well. Like you are the expert on your own personal child, and also you're the expert more than your child on your family. So you kind of know some of the things that might come up. I know for me, like always going into it ever since I was a child, my mom and I are like, oh, Uncle so-and-so is going to do that. Oh, I wonder when Aunt so-and-so is going to do that, and things like that. And so you can kind of also prepare your child for certain boundaries that they might not be used to, or certain reactions that they might be used to. And I know I've cared for my cousin when she was an infant, and I know my family, we tease each other. That's a huge way we show love. We joke around. And I remember being a child myself in this family and always like getting stressed. So I taught her just the phrase like, stop teasing me. And just her being able to label what was happening to her and what she was feeling really reduced a lot of the issues that came up and everything like that. So just being able to know what to expect and sharing those expectations of what could happen or certain behaviors that they might see as well, especially because you can't control the other people, but you know them. So you can kind of think about what might be new for your child.
Yeah, you really gave your cousin a tool, like empowered them, gave them voice, right? In that moment.
I think yeah, that was wonderful. And we have a question in the chat that kind of ties into that, because we've been talking about when people and you're intervening for the child, but we also have this idea of if you're expecting a lot of unsolicited advice to you. And maybe some tools or techniques or something, how to handle that unsolicited advice.
I think that goes a lot back to what Landon said, is that you're the expert on your family. So you get this unsolicited advice from somebody. What do you believe to be their intent? Do they really want to help you? Do they really want to have a discussion? Are they open to hearing your side of the story? Or do they just want to pass on their wisdom to you without anything else? And you know this person. So if they're just going to be, well, we always, swallowed the babies and put pacifiers in their mouths and put them in the corner. I don't know what they would say. You're like, oh, thank you very much. We're trying something different right now. Thank you for that. I'll keep that in mind. We're trying something different. But if they're really open to having a conversation, then you could have a conversation if that's your relationship with that person. But if it's not, just, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're trying a little something different right now, but I'll keep that in mind. And then just boop, moving on. How was your football team doing?
Yes, sometimes I hear the phrase, well, you turned out okay, right? I know you turned out okay. So, and, I may say, I did, and I really appreciate everything that you did, right? And now I'm learning something even more that wasn't maybe available when you were parenting. Yeah, so kind of, I think, acknowledging sometimes those feelings.
That is so important too. I think we've all had grandparents come into our classes, and because I'm all gray haired, they tend to relate to me now, and they go, well, when my child was little, I didn't have to go to parenting classes. Look how well they turned out. And you're so right, Shan, she's so right in saying, yes, they did. But I usually tell grandparents that I don't expect them to have to raise their grandchildren right, but just to at least understand what page their children are on. But in a holiday,
beautiful.
when you've got more than just grandparents, it can be challenging.
Well, and parenting is such a personal thing, Wendy. Like if I'm doing it this way, it seems like I'm judging the way you're doing it.
No.
You know, and I try not to. I mean, sometimes I do. Come on, I'm like, but I try not to be judgmental, and it can feel like that, to some people, especially to your parents or your in-laws. Like, what I did the very best I could with you. Why don't you want to do it the way I did it? It can feel personal.
Well, when you get down to it, when we first start rye, and I think most of us are really aware of this, when you don't know what to do, you're going to do what you know. So we end up changing patterns, brain, synaptic connections that we were programmed with, and just to understand that our parents are doing what they know.
Yeah.
With all good intentions, but sometimes the road to hell can be paved with good intentions. No one's doing it out of malice.
Yeah.
Right. I do thinking about what the intention is, right? So for example, in my household, or in my parents love to provide gifts for my children quite often, right? That's kind of the way that they share their love, and it's different in our household. So sometimes just acknowledging, at least in my brain, what this means for them, and then acting accordingly, right?
We have a couple more questions, but I want to move on to another topic, and then we might be able to loop back around to some of those questions as well. We've touched on this already, but I just wanted to have your thoughts on seeing the holidays through the eyes of the child, and just that perspective taking and the importance of it. And if anybody had any just additional thoughts on that. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but.
Well, I think first of all, to understand is that there's going to be so much stimulation. They're going to be really overly stimulated. And, Melanie, I think this would be good for, because you've got a whole brood of kids.
And they'll stimulate each other. Everybody gets revved up. Everybody gets excited. The excitement in the air that they can feel, But what is that like for, your little one? Or maybe we're all excited for you to open all your presents. Maybe I just want to play with the box. Do I have to open all the presents this morning? Or could I play with this box right now? Because I'm interested in that. And allowing space for that to happen, if that's what you want to do. And
kind of all rules go down the drain sometimes, because then they're distracted. We don't believe in distraction, redirection. So how do you deal with that? Yeah.
And making sure that you can take them off somewhere, maybe if they need to. I don't usually separate my children when they have big feelings. Like, I don't care what everybody else thinks, I don't care that, you're like, why she's screaming. But if somebody's going to come over and be like, oh, are you having a hard time? Here, have this, or shake a rattle in their face or something, I am going to take you to the other room, so that, not because I feel like you're making everyone feel uncomfortable, or that you're too loud for everyone else. I'm going to take you to the other room so you feel free to be allowed to express yourself without people trying to make you feel better, And
what do you think it looks to them? What does it look like to them when they hear people talking to them in baby talk? Oh, look at that. Look at the pretty light. Oh, the ball.
Yeah.
How do you bring them, what do you say?
Yeah, well, again, that's something afterwards, Shannon, maybe,
Yeah, and it may be something I say afterwards, or I may just kind of, again, if it's appropriate, just kind of add my words in there. Oh, I think she's wanting you to, look at the truck that she just got, or that she's showing you, or, I guess I do a lot of just saying what I see, but trying to bring them back around and model what I'm maybe hoping for. Or talking about it later.
I have there's some great questions going on in the chat, just so you know, but I'm going to throw this one out at you guys right now. Your thoughts on when parents feel like they, quote, did it all wrong. so to speak. So when they see you parenting in a different way, as an early childhood professional, I have a hard time with this because my mom will ask me questions about babies, and then I might share a tidbit about child development because she asked, and then she almost feels bad that she didn't know that or know what this information when she was raising her children.
Yeah, I think
I think it's
about,
that personal piece again.
yeah, I think about that, you may think that your parents kind of gave you the tools to be able to even dive into this child development work and learn more. So you wouldn't kind of be where you are today without the support and encouragement of your parent. So I think giving that parent real kudos for being open to learning about what I'm learning about, and knowing that we're constantly learning, even as a parent today, what I do, I'm going to be learning about it and maybe shifting what I do tomorrow. Yeah, and that self, that I don't know, I think about that self-care for that parent, but just being really thankful, if you are thankful, authentically thankful, right?
That's a really good point, acknowledging to that parent the fact that they're thinking about it. Then I would say, look, Mom, I'm not so bad, am I? Yeah,
Right.
I love what you've just said. My mother passed away before I had my son, and she was not a great mother. She was a tough lady. So it reminds me of my sister who came out and watched me with my son, and she said, "Oh, this rye stuff is silly. You'll see. He'll hate you one day like my girls hate me." I was stunned that my sister said that, because she was totally negating the benefits of what I'm doing. Now, 30 years later, she goes, "Oh, I wish." So that's my time to say, at least you see it, and be kind to yourself, be forgiving of yourself. What do you think,
And you
Shannon?
still can do, right? You still can, I think about students sometimes that come to my foundations course that with adult children, and then they come back to me the next time we're together and say, I just had this really lovely conversation with my adult child about something. And I don't think it's ever too late to have those conversations.
It's never too late. And we all have guilt, because listen, I've been doing this with my children for 17 years. My oldest is 17, and I still screw up every day. I went too fast. I missed that cue. Whatever it was that I missed, I screwed up today. I am doing better than I was 17 years ago. I am making progress little by little. But I still there's not a perfect rye day that happens in my house, or in my childcare facility, either one. And I beat myself up sometimes because, the guilt that I didn't know, or I didn't do it right, or I, screwed that up. But we got to be kind to ourselves. I'm working on it. I'm still going. I'm still trying.
I got to tell you something that
Yeah.
Magda told me just on this subject alone. She said, and I've used it ever since it was like ice water in my face. She said, if you were a perfect parent, you would be a terrible parent. They could never live up to you. And it's through your flaws, the mistakes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that you model to them how you get through it. It's a flawed world. So embrace the mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about too, was the modeling that you were just talking about there, Melanie, is this is what happened today, and just being authentic through it, right?
And the silver lining is I get to model to you how to apologize. I get to model to you how to repair a relationship that's been ruptured. I get to, that's the silver lining. It's like, okay, well, I screwed up. Well, now I get to model apologizing.
Through some of the conversations, you guys have touched on the theme of self-care in the holidays and how that impacts the stress, the tension, everything that's going on. I just wondered if you could share a thought on that for us.
Yeah, I think about trying to, it's so hard because it can be such a rush time of year, going from here and there, and thinking about your own expectations of what you're hoping for the holiday versus what is. And I think if I can kind of process some of those things and think about what I need for myself, and make sure I'm providing myself either that time or that space or that forgiveness or changing my expectations.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if need be, right? What does the holiday really need? What are my expectations and hopes truly for this holiday? And is that realistic?
Right. Is it going to matter to the baby that, or the children, that every present has a bow on it, that, or is it just going to be, great that you're less stressed, that you have a little less, tension about everything? It's that whole put on your mask first and then help everybody else, if
It is.
if you're too stressed, they're going to feel that. And I know the pressure. Oh my gosh, it's a magical time of year. Do you know why it's magical? Because you do all the work. That's why it's magical, right? And so there's a lot of pressure to make it magical, a magical season. But you got to find a way to help yourself take a break and enjoy it. And what does it really, what's important? What does it really mean this season, this time for you, this holiday, whatever it is, and focus on that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's really hard because we have these questions on the relationship piece, but I also want to talk about the gift giving and the toys. So what I'd like to do is if we could just shift a little bit and talk just for a moment about toys, but I'm going to try to save some extra time at the end for more questions. But I just know that we wanted to make sure to share some information around toys and gifts. So Melanie, you want to jump in first?
Sure. I put some of my favorites back here, and the main thing that to really think about is that we want to have toys or play objects that are, we say in Rye, our phrase is that passive toys make active babies. I want the baby to do the work, not the toy. So we're going to steer clear from the lights flashing, sound doing, making toys, so that these, and these are all open-ended toys. I can put this with that, and maybe this will happen with this in some interesting way. There's no beginning, middle, and end to these toys, and you just get to play with them in whatever way you want, and those are the key elements that we're looking for when we look for play objects for young children.
Okay, but in Christmas, what if you've told the family or those close to you, passive toys, but Uncle Jim just couldn't resist getting this train that spews out bubbles and makes noises and right.
Right. So I grab the gift right away and I take it in the other room and throw it in the trash can, right?
Yes, because
oh no.
Now everybody is crying. Uncle Jim is crying, the baby is crying, you are crying, and it is not a happy holiday anymore, right? That is exactly what we want at Rye, is for you to make a miserable holiday for everyone. Now, Uncle Jim really meant the best. He thought that toy looked awesome and it looked really fun to him. And he's so excited for your child to have that toy. And then your child opens it up and they're like, bubbles! Oh, yay! We can't rip that away from them and take that away. However, a lot of these really active toys, because they're active, they have a short life with your child, because it just does the one, like how long, I mean, bubbles are awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love bubbles. But how long I just would like, ooh, there's no more bubble juice or the bubble juice is gone. And then after there's no more bubble juice, how interesting is this toy anymore? Or how it has a limited life, it beeps and it boops and then let's go look at something else. And after they've lost their attention for it, just like any other toy, this is not a special case. Just like any other toy, once it's no longer something we're interested in, I may take it out of the toy rotation. You know, if you're not interested in this ball, then I'm going to put something else in the toy rotation instead, you know. And if you're not interested in the toy, the train, I'm going to take it out of the, I just probably wouldn't put it back in.
Or you could take out the battery and turn it into a passive toy.
Right. If that's
You
possible,
could.
even better, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember phones, I even have used them in my class, you know, the cell phones, and you press the buttons and they're too active. Well, I bought a bunch and I just kept them underwater so they broke. You know, so, and now
Because
that,
they want to model, they want to pretend that they're a grown-up. And what do grown-ups pay more attention to than anything else, possibly? You know, they want to pretend to be a grown-up and do grown-up things. But can we make it a passive toy so that they have to use their imagination? They have to, you know, be creative, right?
Right. And I think because children are do so much with those passive objects, sometimes those things with lights and bells and whistles end up getting broken, right? Because children are trying to make them active. So another way that they don't last too long.
At this point, is there anybody who'd like to raise their hand and come on? We're happy to take a live question. If not, I can, I know we've got some more in the chat, but please, if you are interested, we're happy to have you come on, video and audio. Just raise your hand and we'll welcome you in. Here's an interesting question is, what do you say or do or say if a relative gets mad about your reaction towards them? So maybe even on the toy, you know, something happens. And then how do you, some maybe suggestions, how do you overcome the fear of insulting them or saying something wrong?
Yeah, that's hard. Again, this is going to depend on your relationship with that
It
person.
is.
You know, you don't, I know holidays are special and we all want to get along and we want to have a happy time. Like that's our huge expectation. Everybody's going to get along and have a wonderful, happy time together. Maybe we need to relook at that expectation a little bit, depending on, you know, what you know about your group that's getting together. But just because it's a holiday doesn't mean you have to stay present in a abusive relationship. You know, if that person is just getting to be too much, have that exit strategy ready. You know, oh, it's time for our walk. We got to go. See you later. Or we got to get some air, or, you know, whatever it is. Because you don't have to stay. Just because it's not the holidays, you don't have to stay in an abusive situation with somebody.
Yeah, I do think it depends on the relationship is coming up for me. If it's a relationship where you can just like with children, saying what you see, you're really upset because you were hoping he liked the toy and he does not. You know, then I would say that. But again, if I don't have a relationship where that statement's not going to go over well, I think, you know, moving on to a different topic or something, maybe what needs to happen there, or what Melanie's saying, having that, oh, it looks like he needs a diaper change, right? Or, you know what, we're tired, we need to leave early tonight, or whatever it is that you need to do, and caring for yourself as well. I think it depends on that relationships, and that's hard to say, as those dynamics are different for each of us. So it depends.
but also, Shannon, with the awareness of the children, our babies are
Oh,
aware
yes.
of this too.
Yes.
You know, so they see the dynamics. And then again, you want to help them make sense of it. When Uncle Jim turns, you know, maybe has a little too much to drink, it starts to get a little difficult. You know, you're right, Shannon, you have to make sense of it to the baby, who's aware of all, not of the
You
drinking,
do.
but of the behavior, of the tension.
I'm glad that
yeah.
you brought the child back in there. That's so important, right? So expressing to the child what's happening and that's developmentally appropriate, or expressing the feelings to the child, right? Or the child's feelings to the child.
Absolutely. And just remember that you're the parent too. You know, if I've said that this child doesn't have to open every present under the tree tonight, and Uncle Jim's really impatient for him to open his bubble train and starts getting mad at me because I'm letting my kid play with the box for 2 hours, I'll say, yeah, I get it. You really want him to open his present. He's happy doing this, and I'm the parent, so I get to call the shots. I'm gonna let him do that.
Yeah, I set this boundary, Uncle Jim, with my child, and I'm going to stick with my boundary,
Yeah.
right?
Uncle Jim needs some help.
I
He
do.
does.
Poor
I
Uncle
mean,
Jim. We really have hammered him today. He's really
Yeah.
awesome in a lot of ways. He tries.
I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
This kind of shifts this, but we're still in this relationship and communicating the parenting styles. How can we be better at discussing parenting styles with your partner or spouse? Different childhood experiences sometimes make styles clash.
Right.
Huge question.
Right. Yeah. And it's so
Wow.
much better if you guys can come to one of these with your partner, if you can come to one of these on the same page, right? And you've got each other's back. Oh, it's so much better that way. And you can
It is.
right? Like go around the corner and be like, Uncle Jim's driving me crazy. That's how you guys co-regulate, right? He's like, I know, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not Papa Jim, Daddy Jim. But that does happen sometimes. I know we've all experienced, known, and maybe it's your own experience too, that you might get it and the other parent does not, and does not buy into it. I found that you can still raise a perfectly authentic child just by validating the reality,
I think
not
so
to
too.
become an apologist for the parent who doesn't get it, but to validate, yeah, dad said this or mommy said that, and I saw it hurt your feelings, that wasn't okay. You might say, daddy or mommy loves you, but that, sometimes he has a hard time expressing things and we do things differently. And I have found that children are very resilient, and helping them make sense of that and being there. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, validating the child's feelings. His voice was rather loud and that seemed to startle you.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you need, right? And knowing that the relationship is important, the relationship the child has with if there's two parents, right, with both parents, whether it's, mom, dad, whatever it is. And so being and modeling respect for that other parent, right? So we're wanting to model those things, but also acknowledging those children's feelings along the way.
And sometimes in these holiday situations, you're like, okay, we're going to your parents' house and you've got your partner and you guys are on the same page and then you usually have each other's back. And then your partner shows up and he slides, or whoever slides back into their role in that family. They come back, he's the baby of the family and he slides back into that role. And you've all of a sudden lost your teammate,
Right. Or I think the children need to go, they're tired, and the other parent says, no, we stay up till midnight here, we are going. So, then you get to make a choice. Either I'm going home and, I'm going to sleep and you got the kids, good luck at midnight. Or, figure that piece out.
But you bring up a great point, Shannon. It's balance too.
It is.
It's balance. Like we are so mindful of the perspective of the child. We're so mindful of what it's like for them. But we also, this is a special time. This is the only time there's only a couple days you get to be with your mom and dad.
Yes.
You get some stuff too. We can't always put the baby's needs way up here and no parents' needs. or we can't always put the parents' needs way up here and no baby's needs. It's not going to work out. There has to be balance. Okay, we're going to stay up later and I'm going to make that sacrifice, knowing full well that tomorrow morning is going to be a nightmare. But I am saying it's worth it tonight because everybody's having a really good time and I just want to stay here with my family, or you want to stay here with your family, or whatever it is. You know, we might have to make judgment calls for the balance of this.
I think it reminds me what you said towards the beginning about, grandma only has 2 days with them. And so that may mean that things look a little different. So for this holiday, it could mean the world to the dad or the parent that wants to stay up late. Now I'm bashing the dad that wants to stay up late, but so yeah, having that balance, as you're mentioning, is important.
Great. We have time for probably one more question. We're right at 10:30. And then, sorry, two things. One, we're almost to the end. I want to take one more question, and then if we could stay just a couple minutes for anybody who wants to. And Melanie, would you share some of the toys that are behind you?
Sure.
Okay, so let me take one more question, but then we'll add in a few minutes just for some toy sharing for anybody who wants to stay. So there's a question actually on Christmas tree decorations. And is it okay to have a Christmas tree but without the lights? Are lights okay if the lights are not blinking? Like, I think there's a question around the stimulation piece of decorations.
Yeah.
And how people, any thoughts on that?
Well,
Yeah, I think that's,
go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say, I think it's a thoughtful conversation or question, right? And I think, gosh, I just want to say it depends, like what's important for you and your family. Is it important that you have lights and ornaments on it? If so, then the world will not crash down because you have a tree with lights and ornaments. But if in your household you think it's better to not have lights and ornaments, I don't know. I think that's okay too. I know I didn't really answer the question so well, but I think it really depends in what are the feelings for the people in your household.
Yeah. And if I could, Shannon, maybe you could speak to what does the baby think, right? What is the,
Back to the child, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let's think safety also.
Well,
Oh, thank you.
right.
Does the Christmas tree have to be in a high traffic area that the baby is in, or can it be in a different place? And so we can go look at the tree and then go play in our place that's not, so close to it, or is there not that room in your house? So it has to be in the same place. That might make a difference on how I choose to decorate it. Or sensitive observation of my child. Does my child get highly stimulated by those things or not?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it becomes just such a distraction that they're not playing like they were before, right? If that's changed dramatically, then it is maybe moving it to another room or keeping the lights off.
Yeah.
That observation.
Yeah, that there's no, if I can just summarize kind of what I'm hearing is, it depends so much on that baby
Mhm.
and then the needs, and kind of back to Melanie's balancing.
Yeah.
The baby's needs in that situation and based on that individual child as well.
And your situation, the circumstance is this a mobile baby? Is the only place for the Christmas tree near their spot? Well, then maybe I need to put it up get a little one and put it up on a table so we can't reach it. Or, there's a lot of things to consider in your situation.
What kind of ornaments to put on it to make sure they can't grab it and stick it in their mouth or something,
And
I love there's I'm sorry, I was just going to say there's a comment in the chat that I just would like to read out. With my toddlers, I introduce the tree one thing at a time. First pictures of the tree, and then the actual tree, maybe some ornaments, and then finally lights, if they were interested in it. Lots of conversation.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice.
Mhm. Okay. Well, first, I do want to spend some time on the toys in a minute, but first I would just want to say thank you very much to you guys for being here, and thank you everybody. And this has all been such great conversation. And I've really appreciated everybody's participation. And then, yeah, if we can just kind of finish up with a little more discussion on, Melanie, what you have behind you.
Awesome. Well, I also want to show you what I have on. I have on a rye shirt. This is my rye shirt. One of my favorite phrases from Magda, the do less, observe more, and enjoy most. And I think that's a wonderful mantra for the holiday if you're looking for something to tell yourself. And I think Melissa will put in the chat, and if you're watching this recording, maybe in the comments, where you can get shirts like this. They also have onesies that say, you know, slow down or slower, 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 which I think I should get for every child in my childcare so that I remember as I approach them. Oh, yes, those remind me. And they have coffee cups and all that kind of stuff. So you guys can look at that for your holiday shopping if you want to. But yeah. This, you know, Rye's traditional first toy is the napkin. This was given to me by Liz Memel. Yeah, I know, Wendy. So this is one of my favorites, and it's just such a great first toy. And that's the thing, you guys, we don't have to break the bank for these toys. We don't have to, you know, I mean, it's great if you want to like get this. Grandma really wants to do something. Grandma, give me some napkins and then contribute to the college fund, you know, also. So we can have something to open if you want to, but we can do super easy things. I like the stacking toys, the nesting toys. Those are always fun. I like to use different textures. So I have some wood, I have some silicone, I have some metal. These are just little, you can get these at the kitchen store, the oh gosh.
Yeah, those sauce cups that you see at the restaurant.
Yeah, these are fantastic. They're fantastic. I also love cloth books for our little people because I can't bite a chunk off of this, even if I try. You know, cloth books are great. This, you know, you have to wait till they're a little bit older, but a set of silk scarves, this is a long-term toy. Like I can play with this as a very young child, and I can play dress up with this when I think my 8-year-old made dresses out of this the other day. So, you know, it's still going. This is a still going one, which is great. And you can also just find great stuff around your house. It doesn't have to be, you don't, again, have to go shopping if you're trying to avoid the consumerism of the holiday. I did spend the money for the ice cream that was in here, and I, for the children, ate the ice cream because I love them. All right. So, you know, a nice see-through twist top thing is really fun. And this is the top of a condensed juice thing. I collect these all the time because they're super fun to play with and they make lots of great sounds. So those are some of my, and of course, always balls. Balls are great. This slightly deflated beach ball, really easy to get a hold of if you are still just having only that palmar grasp. You can get a hold of that and play with this, and many different kinds of balls, wiffle balls that I can get my fingers into if I have teeny tiny fingers. Those are fun too. Those are
I
some
am so impressed with your sacrifice, how you sacrificed yourself for that ice
I
cream
know.
and suffered. I'm going to go and do the same thing for my
I think I am
pasta.
too.
very good. That's the kind of selfless people we are.
Is that the new thing? Anybody who's teaching parent infant, we have to start buying people ice cream.
It's that self-care.
It is.
Okay, we'll buy you some.
For one, self-care and a good toy, right?
Yeah. Any comments, Melanie, on the cleanliness, dealing with COVID and things like that around toys?
Well, with COVID particularly, it doesn't appear in the beginning, you know, in March, whatever it was, we were, and we still are actually disinfecting everything, you know, we actually still are in my facility just because we got into the habit of it kind of. But it doesn't appear to be as much of a contact thing, just COVID particularly, just to make that clear. But it's also really great though to keep that in mind when we're cleaning all of our toys. The wood toys, you have to treat differently usually than the plastic, the silicone, the fabric. The fabric you can throw in the washer, and the plastic, the silicone. But the wood toys you have to treat a little bit differently. I know that rye at the center, we've used a lot of alcohol on the wood toys versus the other toys, and let them dry out. So, you know, but most of these things can just be cleaned
Clean.
really easy. And that's one of the things I look for in a toy. Is it easily cleanable? Is it something that I can clean? Because I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that.
So we are at our end. I really appreciate this conversation. Wendy, Shannon, Melanie, thank you. Any final comments from the three of you? Anything?
I just,
Happy holidays.
yeah.
Yes, you know, take care of yourself and give yourself some grace and
Absolutely. Enjoy your child and your season.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to say goodbye. I'm gonna stop recording now, but thank you
so
again.
much.